Public hearing. I would ask everyone at this time to either put their cell phones on silent or vibrate or turn them off. Truthfully, from about where this gentleman's sitting here in the mustard color shirt forward, you don't have any service on this end of the building anyway. And you'll probably just drain your battery, let it try to find a signal. The procedure will be to introduce the case record as the Codes Department has it by means of a PowerPoint presentation on the wall and the monitors there at the rear of the building, rear of the room. We'll present any maps, photographs, site plans, and sketches that are involved in today's cases. We'll also present any letters to the board in support or opposition to a particular case, as well as any correspondence received from other metro agencies. After my presentation, the applicant will come first and present their board along with any persons in support of their case. And then if there's opposition present, the board will then hear from those parties opposed to a case. After the opposition has presented their testimony, the applicant has a period for rebuttal. The board in their rules provide that cases without opposition have 10 minutes to present their case. There's a clock to the right of you where you'll be sitting here. That'll be your time. That time will run upon your testimony. It'll stop for any questions that the board members ask you, and as well as your response to that. We'll try to gauge once you're done sort of answering the question. If you start back in the testimony, we'll start that clock back up. In cases with opposition, both sides of an appeal have 15 minutes to present their testimony. The applicant should save some of their 15 minutes for rebuttal to be used in their rebuttal period. All section numbers that I refer to today come directly from the Metropolitan Code of Laws in Title 17. Title 17 was adopted by the Metro Council on January 1st, 1998, and it applies to the entire jurisdiction of Metro government. The code requires that these proceedings be taped. Therefore, it's imperative anyone wishing to address this board, please come forward. I have 4 seats at the table today. Identify yourself and make your presentation. If you get done talking, if you would please, there's a speak button on the desktop if you'll turn your mic back off when you're through speaking. I'd appreciate it. The board will go through all cases set for public hearing today, and after each case, the board will then discuss and vote on that case. The board is vested with the powers to act before you as outlined in Section 1740-180 of the Metro Code of Law. The code does require that 4 members of this 7-member board be present to constitute a quorum. At the moment, I have 5 members present. The code also requires that you have 4 affirmative votes to grant your application. Therefore, you need 4 out of these 5 folks sitting before you, or 4 out of 6, Mr. Harper arrives, to have your case approved. If you fail to get 4 votes today, affirmative votes, of course, obviously, if you get 4 denied votes, you're denied. But if you fail to get 4 affirmative votes, your case will be on our agenda for the next 30 days. The board members who participated are allowed to change their vote. The board members who were not present may watch today's proceedings on the YouTube channel, review the case record in the paper formats that were turned in before us, and then can become eligible to participate should they so choose to at the next hearing and then vote. If after 30 days you've still failed to receive your 4 votes, your case is deemed denied by operation of law. The appellant or any aggrieved property owner may request a rehearing of this board within 60 days of this public hearing. Further, any applicant or aggrieved property owners may appeal this board's decision to Chancery or Circuit Court within the same 60-day period, but once that 60 days has elapsed, this board's decision is final and no further action may be taken. If you're an applicant and your case is granted, it is necessary for you to obtain the permit for which you've applied. It should be noted that this permit must be obtained within 2 years of today's date for this board's approval to remain valid. If you fail to pick up your permit, you'll have to repetition the board for approval on your case. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases were filed in proper order. Applicants were notified by certified mail as required by the zoning code. All affected property owners within 300 feet were notified by first-class mail, and a legal ad was published in the Tennessean as required by the code. Do we have any elected officials present today? Okay, seeing none, I do have some preliminary announcements, several actually. Let me go over those. The first is withdrawals of cases either by applicant or by staff. The first that I have is on the very front of today's agenda, case 2013-57, Mr. David Rodriguez was the appellant. Micah and Frank Caputo, the owners of the property at 1515 Boscobel. Mr. Rodriguez has notified me that he wishes to withdraw his case and will no longer pursue his appeal. So his case is withdrawn by staff. Case 2013 at the top of page 2, 2013-70, the Jocelyn Sign Company was appealing for Russell Seagraves and Frankie Matthews, the owners of the property at 1300 Gallatin Pike. That case is deferred by staff. A recent text change in CS zoning allowing car lots prohibited LED signs. This case was not advertised for that portion. So there will be a two-part appeal once that returns to you. Falling into our cycle, I have to set it for September 19th. New notices, new signs will be posted at no charge to the appellant. That's my mistake, and we'll get them scheduled for September 19th. And let's see, the second case on page 2, case 2013-71, the Jocelyn Sign Company, Whitworth Caldwell, the owner of the property at 1702 West End Avenue, was requesting an item A appeal, appealing the zoning administrator's interpretation of the code in the MUIA district to install a digital LED wall-mounted sign. The zoning code, that is withdrawn by staff. The zoning code is silent as to MUI and MUIA districts allowing LED signage as such under Tennessee case law, and the essentially the rule in Tennessee of Dillon's rule, unless it is specifically prohibited, it is allowed by right. So we are required to issue the permits at 1702 West End Avenue. So that case will not be heard today on case 71. That's all the preliminary announcements I have. I would like to, at this time, call and just kind of give the members here and myself some idea of time frames about how long today's agenda is going to go. When I call the remaining cases out, if you're here in opposition to a case, obviously the applicants have to be here, so I know they are present. But if there's opposition present to any of these cases I call, if you would please raise your hand, it'll give me some idea about ballparking time in here. The first case in our agenda, case 2013-72, Mr. Scott Cornett at 2407 Vaux Lane. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 72 on Vaux? Okay, seeing none. Top of page 3, case 73, Mrs. Mayo at 310 Evanston Avenue. Anyone opposed to case 73? Okay, we do have some folks here. And you're opposed, ma'am? You're not the applicant? Okay. All right. Case 74, Mr. Jerry Williams at 400 Hathaway Court. Anyone here in opposition to 400 Hathaway? Okay. Case 75, the West Nashville Church of Christ at 821 Templeton Drive. Okay. Case 76, the Metropolitan Government at 2531 Buena Vista Pike. Okay. Case 77, MDHA at 1025 First Avenue South. Okay, seeing none. Case 78, MDHA also at 1054 Second Avenue South. Okay, case 79, the last case on the page, Ascend Federal Credit Union, 1901 Charlotte Avenue, or Pike rather, I'm sorry. Okay, well thank y'all. The board does have a consent agenda, and prior to the meeting, a board member reviews the record in each case, and if in their opinion the applicant meets the criteria for the application they've requested, and they feel that testimony in the case will not alter the material facts, they recommend those cases by motion to the remainder of the board for approval. And I'll now enter into the record those cases that have been recommended by the Vice Chairman, Mr. King. And if you're here opposed to the case, if you would please raise your hand, and we'll remove the case and hear it in its regular order. The first case recommended for consent is case 2013-72, Mr. Scott Cornett, 2407 Vaux Lane. He's appealing the setback in the R10 district to construct a new covered front porch. Again, I know I just asked for this, but would you mind if there's anyone in opposition present on Vaux Lane, case 72? Mr. Chairman, seeing none, the topography on the lot necessitates the need to build in this location. With that, Mr. King recommends consent on that case. Second case recommended for the consent agenda is case 2013-74, Mr. Jerry Williams at 400 Hathaway Court, requesting a variance in the street setback to construct a 640 square foot addition to the front of the residence. Is anyone here in opposition to case 74? Mr. Chairman, seeing none, the exceptional topography of this lot necessitates a need for variance in this case. The next case recommended for the consent agenda is case 2013-76, Metropolitan Government Police Academy at 2351 Buena Vista Pike, requesting a special exception and a variance in the side setback to install modular office trailers on the property there. Is anyone here in opposition to case 76? Okay, Mr. Chairman, seeing none. Case 2013-77 is next recommended for the consent agenda. MDHA, the appellant and owner of the property at 1025 First Avenue South, requesting a variance in the street setback to construct a covered front porch on the existing duplex. Again, anyone present for case 77 in opposition? All right, seeing none. Next, 2013-78 is also recommended by Mr. King for the consent agenda. MDHA, again, the owner and applicant of the property at 1054 2nd Avenue South, requesting a variance in street setbacks to install a covered front porch on the front of the duplex. Again, anyone here in opposition to case 78? Mr. Chairman, seeing none. Finally, the last case recommended for the consent agenda, case 2013-79 at the top of page 5, Ascend Federal Credit Union, the appellant and owner of the property at 1901 Charlotte Pike, properties, requesting a variance in the street setbacks in MUAG to construct a new credit union building. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 79?
Joey, for the record, when we vote on this, can you show me as recusing myself from the Ascend case? I was the closing attorney for this seller of this property that Ascend bought.
Will do. I just got that. The record reflect, if I do, let me take the first one and we'll vote on that one separately just to make sure my orders are clean. Case 79, the hardship here, the existing sewer easement cuts across the setback required lines in this new MUGA district. For members present, the MUGA has a setback now of 5 to 15 feet, and the easement actually runs about 25 feet of the width where the building should sit. So they have no choice but to construct it where that is. So with that, let's handle the consent agenda in two parts, please. First, we do have a motion by Mr. King for cases 72, 74, 76, 77, 78.
Second.
Okay, motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Passes.
All right, and then case 79, a motion made by Mr. King. The record reflects Mr. Ewing is abstaining from this.
Got a motion, got a second?
Recused, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Second.
Okay, got a motion, got a second. All in favor?
The clarification on one item, let me find it here. Item 76. That one would be subject to the landscape buffer, Joey.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They were actually on their on their plan showing compliance with landscape code there.
Okay, got a motion, got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes.
Mr. Taylor, on each. Okay, if you're here for cases and starting at the beginning, 72, 74, 76, 77, 78, and 79, your cases have been approved. As stated by the board, you're free to go. And you're also free to stay if you'd like to. And we appreciate it. We're going to hear the first case on our agenda today will be case 2013-73, Ms. Diane Mayo at 310 Evanston Avenue. Ms. Mayo, are you present? I hope so. Thank you. Please come forward. Any parties in support of the case who wish to come to the table at this time may join Ms. Mayo. Ms. Mayo, anywhere you'd like. I'm going to go through some photographs that I took of the property and go over the case, and then I'll turn it over to you. But Ms. Mayo is requesting a variance in the street and rear setbacks in RS5 to construct a new single-family residence of 1,328 square feet with porches and decks referred to the board under Section 1712.030A and 1712.020A. The appellant has alleged the board would have jurisdiction under Section 1740, 180B. Members, if you'll give me just a second, let me pull up her photograph. Excuse me, and thank you for your patience. The subject property you see here is outlined in red. It's located between Pennock and Stainback Avenues on Evanston Avenue, again in the East Nashville area. It is located in the RS5 zoning district. RS5 permits single-family residential uses. The aerial photograph of the subject property, this photograph was taken approximately February of 2010. There was a residence on the property. I don't know the disposition of it. I'll let the applicant cover during her time exactly what happened to the home, but they are wishing to reconstruct a new home on the lot. The proposed site plan as submitted by the appellant shows the proposed residential structure's location as well as the proposed setbacks. The dashed area in which you see running here is the building envelope. If the applicant complied with the zoning code, that's their buildable area. And she's seeking rear and front setback variances for the structure. This is the subject property looking from Evanston Avenue, and then the parcel to the west with a home there. The alleyway, which you see where my cursor is moving, and the home to the east. Recapping that are those two homes here and here. And then a view, again, sort of from the alleyway there. But those are our photographs, and with that, I'll turn over to the applicant this time. Ma'am, you'll have 15 minutes to present your case. Should you wish a period of rebuttal after the opposition comes up, be sure to save part of your 15 minutes. With that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Yes, I'm Diane Mayo, and I'm the applicant, but the property is currently owned by Stephen and Catherine Mead, and it was offered for sale as a single-family lot. And as you saw, the prior residents there, I don't really know too much about that one except for the fact that I think it was destroyed through a fire. So it is no longer there, and it was removed. And as you see on that diagram, I think the current zoning setbacks are 20 on the rear and 20 on the street side. So it makes your buildable envelope 10 feet wide, which is pretty skinny for a single-family house. So we were proposing a variance request for 15 on the rear setback and 15 on the street side, and that would give the envelope depth of 20 feet, and I have a plan that is 16 feet, so that would fit into the appropriate space. I think without some sort of variance, the lot would be totally unbuildable for a single-family residence. Let's see. What else? I have a copy of my plan if anybody needs to see that. It's very much in keeping with the historic nature of the Cleveland Park area. We were planning to utilize some of the area off of the alley for proposed driveway. That may not exactly work out that way because I think it may not work exactly as we have drawn there, but we would do something suitable, I think, for some off-street parking. The structure would be around 1,300 square feet, and it would be a 3-bedroom and 2-bath house. And let's see, I think at this time it's basically a 5-foot then variance on both the front and the street setback. And also, as I understand, the new residents would need to face the Evanston Street. which we would plan to do. So that's all I have at the current time. That's my proposal.
Is this meant to be your home?
No, it is not.
And then, yeah, and I'd be happy to see the plan if you wanted to share.
Sure. Okay. This is similar, but that's not it. So let me get the correct one. I will be working with an architect. This plan, as he has drawn it, this is the front of the home, but we're going to turn, the actual front would be this way. So we've got to make a few adjustments, but I didn't spend the money to make those adjustments at this time until I knew we could do the structure.
Any other questions?
Joey, do we know what the setback for the house that's to the west, what that side setback is now? Approximately. We don't have to wait for that. It's just whenever you can find it.
Yeah, let me, I can pull up some online maps and see what, I'll get a measurement.
I was just trying to get some idea of where the old house was. And
Certainly, no problem.
Ma'am, unless you have anything else to present, you can save the rest of your time for rebuttal, and we can just hear from
Sure.
the opposition.
Is that muted?
All right.
Oh, wait, you would actually move back into the crowd, and she would come up.
All right, ma'am. Thank you very much. And Miss, if you'd like to come forward, please identify yourself to the board and make your presentation.
My name is Rosalind Phillips. I am the resident at 1105 Pinnock Avenue, which my backyard is 300 feet from the rear setback that Ms. Mayo is requesting a variance for. Opposition is a pretty strong word. I didn't know what was planned. I just got the letter in the mail, so I'm kind of on the agenda. 5 feet is not enough for me to seriously oppose it. I just wanted to see. It was more of a wanting to see what it was, and I had to be on the agenda. So,
Did you see these plans?
do you mind if I?
Sure.
Thank you. So I can honestly say I don't have an opposition, guys.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for being here anyway.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
We just whispered you're a model citizen. You came, you politely waited.
I'm also a new homeowner. I just bought this house in April,
Oh.
so I'm still, I didn't know what this was going to mean for my property value and all of that, so
Well, it's one of our great Nashville neighborhoods, so welcome.
thank you.
Well, ma'am, do you have any rebuttal? Okay.
Mr. Harper, your question, according to GIS maps, the house adjoining is about 5 feet off the property line.
thank you.
We wish they would all be this easy.
Okay, I'm going to move to close the public hearing. Any discussion? In that case, I would move that the board approve the variance request for both the front setback and the back setback, as all of the requirements of MCL 17.40.370 have been met, and the board finds that unique characteristics of the property are the extremely narrow building envelope and the narrow nature of the lot. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion, got a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes. Congratulations.
All right, case 73 is approved as mentioned. In the next case and final case of today's agenda is case 2013-9 20-75. The West Nashville Church of Christ, the appellant Charlotte Heights Church of Christ Incorporated, owner of the properties at 821 Templeton Drive, requesting a special exception in RS40 to construct a new 32,000 square foot church building with 496 seats, referred to the board under section 1716-170. The appellant has alleged the board would have jurisdiction under section 1740-180. Item C, applicants are here at the table. Opposition present. Other parties in support as well. If there, once these two gentlemen, if there are any other parties who have anything to add to the support side, can come up after either of these gentlemen leave, and then we'll hear from those parties opposed to the case, and then the applicants that are sitting with us at the table will have a period for rebuttal. Let me pull up the case. The subject property is located, you see here on the property outlined in red, at the intersections of Old Charlotte Pike and Templeton Drive, again in the RS40 zone district. This is the aerial photo of the property taken in February of 10. It's a special exception use. For historical record, this case, a church was approved on this site under 2007-96 for a 32,000 square foot church facility. I do not have that site plan. It is slightly different than the one presented before you today as far as building location. But as we talked about in the opening remarks, approvals from this board must be executed upon within 2 years. Obviously, we're beyond 2 years, so the church came to our office inquiring about this case, the prior case, and I informed them they need to file a new appeal, and so they're here before you today seeking a special exception. This is the site plan as submitted by the appellants here in this case that shows the proposed church building location in this area with parking along the front, a covered drive area here along Old Charlotte, a bank of parking on the east side of the property, and then the landscaping, which you've seen noted on the plan here, and I'll come back to this plan. This is looking at the subject property from Old Charlotte facing south in the upper left corner, again toward Templeton Drive in the bottom right photograph, and then some views from Templeton into the subject property across facing west here. Old Charlotte is along the right-hand side, and then the adjoining properties immediately south, and then toward Charlotte, again Old Charlotte Pike, Templeton Drive here. But I'll come back to the site plan. I have included, members have before you the order in the prior case. There were conditions the board placed upon that. I think for records purposes, let me read those out. The board conditioned no chain link fences around buses, monument sign either to be backlit or face lit, lighting for parking area to be directed inward and turned off 30 minutes after church closes with reduction to minimal security lighting. All accesses moved to Old Charlotte and additional landscaping to be provided. And we have received 5 letters in opposition and I believe 1 letter in support for the case today. So with that, I'll turn
Joey, I was on the board at the time we originally approved this case, and I remember those concessions. Is the applicant agreeable to all of those concessions again?
They've indicated that.
Yeah, and I seem to remember the largest, I guess, bone of contention was access to Templeton versus Old Charlotte, and I guess the plans to show access is on Old Charlotte now. Okay.
Okay. With that, I'll turn it over to you guys. Again, you'll have 15 minutes to present your case, along with any persons in support, and you will also have a period for rebuttal if any time you wish to
Thank you,
say.
ladies and gentlemen. I'm Gilbert Smith. I'm in the real estate business, and I represent the Churches of Christ. When we purchased this property several years ago, we had the property at 46 in Charlotte under contract, and so we bought these properties and tore down the houses. The plans meet the design bulk standards, setbacks, usage. We recently have had a neighborhood meeting invited the council lady to sponsor or attend. Some of the people in the audience were at that meeting. Very cordial, very nice. I think they have some concerns. We'd like to hear what they are. We do not think we've made any changes in the application we had before. This merely is a renewal of that because the 46 property didn't close at that time. It is now closed. Jim Dillingham represents the church and probably will handle the rebuttal.
Again, my name is Jim Dillingham. I am on the building committee for the church. As Mr. Smith said, this is basically a reapplication for the special exemption that was granted some 5 to 6 years ago. We tried to address at that time all the concerns. We had 2 meetings with the community at that time. We had a community meeting Tuesday night, but again, we're back with the same plans. I think there was some concern that on one plan we had proposed increasing the footprint from 32 to 35,000. The facade does not change, the appearance does not change, the landscaping did not change. The only thing that we had proposed in one subsequent plan, some of our elderly members had asked if we could increase some of the fellowship hall area and some of the classroom areas. And basically, we did that, but if that is a concern, we can go back to the original 31,997 square foot facility. Again, we did not change the method of construction, materials of construction, location on the lot, or anything. All the concessions that we agreed to then are still acceptable to the church. And with that, I'll just wait and we'll answer any questions.
I have a question. Your church obviously has been around for a while. Tell us why you're moving and what facilitated all this.
What facilitated this back somewhere around 2007, there was 2 congregations, one located at 46th and Charlotte, one located at 5807 Charlotte. And our leadership, our elders, got together and noticed that the membership at Charlotte Avenue was decreased to around 100 people. West Nashville Heights at that time was around 200 people. The average age of the combined 2 congregations was in excess of 80 years old. They had the foresight and the good common sense to understand that 2 facilities, one that would seat 750, one that would seat in excess of 1,000, greatly exceeded what we needed. The other criteria was that our demographics were of the older age. Both facilities were accessed through some means of stairs, which meant that a large percentage of both facilities were inaccessible to our membership. The second great hindrance to it is if you realize our location at 5807 Charlotte, we are required to enter and exit on a major thoroughfare, and we all hold our breath after every service to see which one of our older people are going to pull out in oncoming traffic. So we really are trying to facilitate the needs of that, plus at the same time give some areas for growth and being able to service.
Obviously, both of these churches are on Charlotte. How old is the Charlotte Avenue Church of Christ?
Charlotte Avenue congregation started, I think, right at the turn of the century.
Okay.
West Nashville Heights, prior, 120 years old.
Okay.
West Nashville Heights started as a mission point for Charlotte Avenue in 1944. We were out in the sticks.
And you grew into a church. You obviously, merging 2 churches, you wanted to be similarly in the vicinity. Why did you pick this area, and what benefits does this have?
Basically, this, as our membership ages, More of our membership is in the Charlotte Park area, some of the Westmead area. The Charlotte Avenue congregation, because of its age, basically drew their original membership from the Sylvan Park area. That membership is very limited now. More of our membership is out in this area.
So how many parking spaces do you have in this proposed?
I'll have to count it, but it was, we went exactly by the code requirement when we submitted it.
But is it 100, 200, 300?
I'd have to count them to be sure,
But this is what it is, okay.
this is
To
what.
me, it looks like, just by looking at it, around 100. I don't know if we have a better. Joey, do you know how many parking spaces?
128 if it's on code.
Okay, 128. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. You talked about the church being the consolidation of two churches, and most of the time when we have cases of people wanting to build or add onto a church is because the church is experiencing growth, and it sounds like that your church isn't. In fact, it's consolidating and it's actually aging. And so I guess the question I would have, and maybe one of the concerns I would have as a homeowner is, what is kind of the long-term vision of this church? And if you're going to build a brand new church, you think, man, this is great. It's going to be here for the next, hopefully, 20, 50, 100 years. And from what I hear you tell me about your church, that doesn't feel to be the case. And so is there any information I didn't hear? And to tell me why, just give me your thoughts on what I just raised.
Our plans are to be there ad infinitum. This facility we have no ability to draw younger families to our facility right now. For lack of a better term, we'll call it a gymnasium, fellowship hall, general assembly area. This is an area that is conducive to younger families, which we, in order to maintain the church, in order to grow the church, that's what will be required. Also in this vicinity, there are probably 3 to 5 additional churches that are suffering the same thing that our two churches did with the aging demographics. This will give them a place if they choose to, basically fold. This will give another place for that to be serviced.
And do you have elevations of the facility that you plan to build?
Yes, it's on the site plan prepared by Little John and Associates.
Okay. You don't have anything that you have here today?
Yeah, we have them. We
Joey,
have the site plans here.
Joey,
Yeah, I'd love to see it if it's available.
I'm sorry if I missed this. What size would you say the congregation is now that you're planning for?
We'll wait till he gets back.
Oh, okay.
I'll just give this to you, or? Oh, you want to?
Yeah, I just am curious to see what it's going to look
Okay.
like.
I thought you wanted a topo.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. How large would you say the congregation is now that you're planning this for?
Right now, currently, we will average on Sunday morning 250 to 300.
Tell me how many services you have during the week and how many days of the week this building actually will be used and when.
Sunday morning, 9 o'clock worship, 10:15 Sunday school. Sunday evening, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock worship, depending on the season. Wednesday evening, 7:15.
So basically 2 days, Wednesday and Sunday.
That's correct.
The rest of the days,
We do not have. We'll have minimal people there staff. Tuesday, there will be ladies' Bible class.
But mainly worship 2 days a week.
Correct. No daycare, no after-school care.
Do we have any other questions? Then, sir, I might suggest you save your remaining 12 minutes and 18 seconds for rebuttal.
That'll be fine. Thank you.
I'd like to call up the opposition, and I would remind you that you have a limited amount of time, so you ought to divide up your time as you deem appropriate.
And please come on up. I have 4 seats here, so if there have more folk.
I guess I might go ahead and start first. My name is Michael George. I'm at 816 Templeton Drive. And I'm one of the neighbors that is immediately affected by this, and I was fully involved in the process of getting this approved in the past. I guess it was 2007. And again, in my case, opposition may be a strong word. I'm here to ensure that we're still talking about the same deal that was approved years ago. And I would certainly want to include those conditions that I heard. I think I'm impressed by your memory, Mr. Ewing. And, one thing I fear is maybe I don't remember all those details that were discussed. I was really happy to hear those because oh, yeah, the lighting. So as long as, I'm not right across from this, but I'll be able to see it. It'll be within my view, but I'm not as directly affected as some of the other neighbors. We had a lot of immediate neighbor involvement in this original plan, and so we did get invitations to the community meeting. I think there are very few of those immediate neighbors that showed up. It might have just been myself. And so, yeah, we were told in that invitation to that meeting that our plans have not changed. This is the same thing. We're just getting reapproval. And so I think we don't have any concerns with that plan that was approved before, so I don't think there was any buzz within the neighborhood that there was anything to be concerned about. So I think as long as we stick to what we had discussed and approved before, we did have to rework the initial plan, and the church was very good in working with the immediate neighbors and shifting the building over and adding the additional landscaping. And so there were a lot of things that did get changed, and I appreciate the church's work. I think my only concerns that still exist are just I want to ensure that the roof stays shingled. That was one issue in the past. There was discussion of a metal roof versus shingled roof, and we felt like shingle was more consistent with the neighborhood. And then if now's not the time, when the time does come, I want to be involved and have input into what the sign is going to be and where it's going to be. I think that some of those details were in those conditions too, and that's a separate permit, I understand, signage? Okay. Well, I just want to be involved in that and then have the roof be shingled and stick to the plan that we agreed to in 2006, 2007.
I'm Pat Dykstra, and I live on Atkinson, which is the street behind Old Charlotte. And I'm definitely not opposed to the church being there. I was just curious, and we were curious about if at any time, and it doesn't sound like it from what I just heard, that you would want to open up the road to Templeton to Charlotte Pike. Templeton doesn't come out on Charlotte Pike now. It comes out on Old Charlotte. And from what I understand about the worries about the traffic and the older people driving, I would assume that perhaps my concern isn't that much of a concern anymore. It doesn't sound like you want to do that, but like they want to do that. And also, there's a buffer zone between Old Charlotte Pike and Charlotte Pike there that has trees and bushes and things that really keep the noise and well, some of it. And that's all that's left between us and Nashville West anymore. And I just wanted to make sure that the church didn't want to get rid of that. And I was concerned also about something Mr. Ewing brought up, which was the parking. How much parking is there going to be, and how big is that lot going to be? Those are my concerns, and I'm not against the church, and I'm sure that my neighbors aren't, who I have talked to some of. And I didn't know anything about this meeting Tuesday night, because I guess I don't live far enough away. I mean, I live too far away, more than 300 feet. But anyway, I'm not really as concerned. I'm not opposed anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't.
Well, they're not asking for any variance on parking, Joey, correct?
No, sir, they're not.
I noticed one letter from the opposition, and obviously this isn't true, that says that there was going to be a 500-car parking lot. And so Joey said it's around 128.
That's what somebody told me, that there was supposed to be a 500-car parking lot. That's not going to happen. Is that correct?
128 spaces.
Okay.
And as we heard from the church members themselves, they don't have 500 members right now. So
Right now. And they don't have any other plans to build senior living or anything
no
there
daycare, no classes.
right now.
Yeah.
And
Because that would be a
That's
concern.
a different approval, too.
they would have to come back before us to do that.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other opposition? Okay.
I might just jump in and add it. I do want to ensure that the landscaping discussed stays in there, and I don't want finances to get in the way of, like, we talked about berms and buffers and shrubbery and trees, and I believe all that's in their plan.
Yeah, Joey, once again, I mean, they have agreed to every single condition from the last time that we approved. Is that correct?
They have, and if you adopt the plan on the screen as displayed.
As shown, so this.
Okay.
I will say, from a quick perusal, he did mention a shingled roof, and that's not one of the old conditions. So anyway, I think we need to clear that up. But anyway.
It is shingled in their drawings that they submitted, and I would prefer that.
I'm just saying, I'm just queuing up a future order if we do an order. Okay, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Hey, my name is Trish Bolian, and I'm not a neighbor. I'm the president of the Hillwood Neighborhood Association. And I just wanted to, I don't have opposition. I think I wrote in my letter to all of you that we've got many, many churches in Hillwood. Matter of fact, at the end of my street, if I were to cast a very short net, there'd be 4 churches right there. So we're certainly happy to have churches. And my main concern, and I think it's been addressed, I just want to echo the neighbors here. And then a concern that I have, not on this church, but another church. There is a church just right down the Old Charlotte from this church, and it has the brush is cleared, and it now faces Charlotte directly, even though it's not on Charlotte. And Breslin, which is another neighborhood street, comes right by in front of it. And you go stop at the stoplight, and you are right there on State Highway, which is Charlotte. And then if you go right across the State Highway, you're on I-40. And the Hillwood Neighborhood Association has struggled mightily since the placement of Nashville West where it is, to try to control traffic. It's just been a very big issue. And Breslin and to Charlotte to I-40 has become a massive cut through. It's not, and it's a residential street. So my concern is just to echo their concerns. The buffer that is there, I think it's just kind of a bunch of ratty trees with some electric poles. I drove by it just again today. But that to me is a very much of a priority, just judging from what our neighborhood has experienced based on the installation, shall we call it, of Nashville West.
Joey, excuse me, does the church even own that buffer piece of property?
No, sir, they don't. I'm going to look up the ownership.
Okay, so that's really not something that we have any control over with this.
I
would agree.
If I remember correctly, the original owner of the land for Nashville West owned that buffer.
He
Is that
did,
correct?
and then when he sold his property to Nashville West was trying to make Templeton one of the cut-through streets they wanted to cut through, and there were many, many meetings. Matter of fact, that whole thing was the impetus, if you will, for the creation of the Hillwood Neighborhood Association, because all of a sudden residential streets were cutting directly through and becoming thoroughfares. So when Templeton really opposed that, that's when that got stopped, and now we've got other accesses through the neighborhood and street signs, and anyway, and street lights, I should say. So it's unclear to me, since Mr. Gainer sold the land to Nashville West, and then Nashville West let go of that because of community opposition, who owns that land exactly. All I'm just saying is it's a very important buffer to try to keep this a neighborhood, because we've lost so much of what used to be protected. The other thing that concerns me doesn't so much have to do with the number of parking places, but again, I drive by this area with some regularity, and I drove by there on my way here today. The land slopes down, and I don't know whether and what the steps are, but I am concerned a little bit about stormwater and the perviousness or imperviousness of the parking lot and the drainage and what that has to say. And I don't know what, if anything, this board has to say about it. I just felt like I wanted to express that concern. But I just want to reiterate, on our listserv, which has 450 or so people, no one has voiced opposition to the church per se. It's just trying to protect the residential neighbor of the neighborhood and also its privacy, as well as to address any stormwater runoff, which is, as you all know, a growing issue in this city. So, thank you.
Members, I put on the screen for you the owner of that strip of land. It's CGM Partners is listed as the owner of that property.
Which has no affiliation with the church.
I'm aware of.
Yeah, I mean, I can go ahead and speak for them. Instead of them using their time saying it, they're not interested in changing that buffer at all. And the neighbors love, we call it the thicket. We love the thicket just as it is. And I think the church does too. And they don't have any plans to alter it. And they can't really, because it's not their property. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Church, if you'd like to respond.
I'll call it, as you said, a response, not a rebuttal. Yes, the conditions are fine with us. No, we do not own the thicket. In conjunction with the stormwater, Little John Engineering will be doing all that in our submission of plans to Metro. The question about the roof, I was the one who raised the question, because during our community meetings, one of the things that was raised was the height of the structure, as you can see on the elevations. The reason for that height is because the neighbors actually felt a desire to have shingles on the roof, so that dedicated the pitch that we needed. Subsequent to that, and we broached the subject at our meeting Tuesday night, if the opposition was to the height, we now have precedent in the area of a church that basically came in and put a metal roof on. And the neighborhood evidently didn't have opposition to that. So we kind of offered that as a secondary solution. If the height was an issue, the allowance of going to a nice color-coordinated metal roof would allow us to lower the height of that roof line.
I personally haven't heard any opposition to the height, so are you still fine with the shingle roof?
Well,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just saying the question was raised during our initial conversations about the height of it.
Okay. Can I also, just for the record, I think it's important to say that the planning department has recommended approval of this, and also Public Works has opined that traffic should not be a problem because of the placement of the church, and it feeds into arterials. So anyway, I thought it was good to get that in the record as well. Okay. Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, then I'm going to move to close the public hearing and start discussion.
Well, I remember this case, as I said earlier, from last time, and I'd once again like to commend the parties, particularly the church. It's very rare that churches merge. Usually it's the opposite. They split, and we get more and more and more. And as far as one of our older churches in the Church of Christ system here in Nashville, it's very tough. I belong to a church that was founded around the Civil War and kind of older population, and you kind of look to see how you're going to grow and what's the future look like. So I commend them for, finding a place that's in their neighborhood and also listening to the neighborhood. And as they talked about, they were approved by this board last time, and they are willing to live with those exact same approval conditions. So I'm here to support it again.
I would agree. I think this has been a model development. So I am going to move that the board approve the special exception use permit with the following conditions. And instead of reading them, I'm just going to ask Joey to place the same conditions from 2007 and also add that it will be a shingled roof. And other than that, I would say that the board finds that all the requirements of MCL 17.16.150 have been met. So we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Passes. Congratulations.
With that, the Board of Zoning Appeals is, well, I'll tell you what, before we adjourn, Board, in your rules, typically in the month of May, now I had some new members come on and we just kind of delayed the election of officers. Is there any interest in the board having officers' elections upcoming? Do you want to put it off until next May? You're not required to hold officers' elections, but
I'm fine with.
I don't know if that's a discussion maybe that we have in the next one, or I stick it on an agenda. And
I'm fine with how we're operating now. What's other people's?
if there's any, okay. Thank you. I just need a little guidance. It's for my housekeeping inside my skull. So thank you for that. With that, the Board of Zoning Appeals is adjourned. Thank you.